Hi, I'm Bill Siegel, and this year I'm talking about Mexican Republic 50 centavos. It's pretty much a tradition with these speeches that you've got to give pretty pictures of expensive coins, so feast your eyes. I'll be showing a few more. All these coins come out of my collection. One of the interesting things is that I started collecting back in 2002. And at the time, all I had was a 1997 copy of North American Coins and Prices. Had no idea I was ever going to collect Mexican coins. So one day, I looked at a page like this. Except back in the 97 edition, instead of 86,000, they just had 86. And instead of 2,000, they just had 2 and 31 and so on. So one day I was looking at my copy of North American Coins and Prices, got to the Mexican pages, and saw the 3-digit mintage figures, and I thought, what the heck is that? Is that 2 million? Is that 254 million? So I had to look in the legend, and when I found out those were thousands, my jaw dropped and my eyes almost popped out of my socket because of the revelation that for that low amount of money, you could get coins that rare. And I was under the mistaken impression that if the figure was in those columns, then those coins existed and they could be achieved too. That's not the case, and I'll get back. But I started out with a vacuum of information, but enough to really get the fire lit. Then I was lucky enough at a show in 2002 to come across a dealer who had about 100 Mexican Republic decimal coins for sale, which is a huge amount at a local show. And I had just been fired up about collecting, didn't know how to start collecting, so I went and bought all of the 50 centavos that he had at the show. And that was my first day of preparation for this speech. So back in 2002, all I had was a scattering of mintage figures from the book, and then I talked to collectors, and I got the urban legends from them. Basically, the idea that 50 centavos are common and they're really not worth collecting in low grades. Then I said, well, what about counterfeits? Because I'm kind of a paranoid guy. I says, well, what about counterfeits? And they says, you mean contemporary counterfeits or modern counterfeits? I says, both. Well, you don't have to worry about contemporary counterfeits, they told me, because they were searching for those way back in the day they circulated, and most of them were found and defaced. And the ones that are left you can find by the look of the coin or the feel of the coin. And in terms of modern counterfeits, just brushed it out. I said, you don't have to worry about modern counterfeits because of the rule of economics, really. It costs so much fixed cost to develop a counterfeit, the capability to counterfeit a coin, then you need X amount of examples to be able to sell without raising the suspicion of the buyers. So because Mexican Republic 50 centavos are so scarce, they said, you don't have any problem with modern counterfeits like you do with the 8 reals. So I said, okay. Then what we've got is a summary that we've got 3 urban legends to either prove or dispel. How available are 50 centavos? Are contemporary counterfeits a problem, and are modern counterfeits a problem? So I came up with the speech, or the title of the speech as Mexican Republic 50 centavos versus urban legend. Now, one of the things I did in preparation for this speech in order to prove or disprove the urban legend part is I have 150 coins in my collection. I have, over the years, acquired 600 duplicates. So my coins in my collection plus my duplicates, I've got no doubt at all that it's the largest holding of 50 centavos that exists. And if it's not, it will be by the time in another decade, because I'm definitely in love with the series. So I had over 750 coins to examine and weigh, and I did that to each of them. I did a weight study. In addition to that, Scott is also a 50 centavo collector, so I got 150 weights of another 150 coins that were in his collection. So in total, I got over 950 coins that I was able to compare the weights on and do analysis. Now, we're going to talk about availability by mint. Here is a very difficult to find Alamos 50 centavo. And the reason is that out of PCGS and NGC, I'm going to give you the combined figures, there's only 10 coins in the combined populations that are AU or better. And out of that, Alamos has 10 dates that were produced by that mint, and only 5 of those dates have a coin that's been slabbed in AU or BU. So in high grade, they're very rare coins. In the lower grades, you've got 75 and 76, which are common. You're going to see those all the time. The fun part about those dates is that because they're common, they must have used a large number of dies because there's a huge number of varieties for those dates. So a lot of you know already. Where do you find the varieties? In the dates that are rare or the dates that are common? It's always going to be in the common ones. So even if you start collecting and all you've got is a copy of North American Coins and Prices, you can look at what they've got for varieties and read between the lines without even having done a population census like I did. And you can tell if there's a lot of varieties, it's probably a date, and no mintage figure, it's probably a date that is easily available. Many were produced. In the Alamos mint, there is none that's rare. And 3 of the dates, the 79, 81, and 84, are scarce. Now, another thing about the AUs and BUs is sometimes the AUs and BUs that have been slabbed for a series are disproportionately piled into a few dates. In Alamos, they're spread out, which means that there wasn't a horde that accounts for most of those. They're just random finds in AU and BU. But as I give you these figures, keep in mind 2 points across all mints. A large proportion of AUs and BUs and XFs have hairlines. I have no qualms at all about buying a coin with hairlines, but that's part of the reason that the submissions to NGC and PCGS for high-grade 50 centavos is so low, is because it's very, very, very difficult to find one without hairlines. And also, the population is probably bigger than what the population censuses show, because myself and a lot of other collectors, once we've got a raw coin, even if it's in BU in our collection, I myself never send it in for slabbing. And I assume a lot of other people are like that. So there's probably a lot more high-grade coins in boxes than will ever show up on the NGC and PCGS censuses. Next mint is Chihuahua. And you know, what hurts this mint in a way is the fact that there was only 6 dates produced. And they're all kind of ugly looking, really crudely struck. And the thing about Chihuahua is the average mintage, the mintage range went from 12,000 for a low of 18,000 to a high. So as a result, there's not much differentiation between the dates in terms of availability. There's only one common coin, the 87, and it's surprising that you could have a series that has a common coin that has a mintage of 18,000. But it's what I did was I spent 7 years doing a census of all of the coins available for a 7-year period of time, 7 calendar years, that were on eBay, were on websites, were offered in auctions, were offered in price lists. And I recorded everything. And even today, if I see something that I missed from that 7-year slice of time, I'll add it. But if I find something that wasn't put up for sale in that 7-year slice of time, I don't add it to my total. So it's a true population survey slice of time type study. And that, not the mintage figures, is what I'm using to tell you what's common, what's scarce, what's rare. That's why you can have a coin with an 18,000 mintage and I say it's common, because my criteria for common is if I saw 5 examples in a year, that was common in any grade. There's only one variety in the Chihuahua series, and the AU and BU examples in NGC PCGS are 8, and those are spread across 4 of the 6 dates. 2 of the dates haven't even been slabbed yet by the grading services in AU or BU. So it's a very difficult mint to get in high grade, and even in fine, anytime I see them, I buy them, just because I kind of like having coins that are tough to get. Culiacan is a mint that had continuous production. So it's got 20 dates and assayers for the series. Very irregular production because their lowest stated mintage, it's not their lowest mintage, but the lowest mintage that was recorded was 7,000, and the highest was 188,000. But you've got 27 AUs and BUs in the PCGS NGC, and out of that, you got 8 dates that don't have any AUs or BUs. The anomaly in terms of high-grade examples is 87. The 87 Culiacan has 6 AUs and BUs, which isn't really very high of a bump in the road, but it stands above the rest of them, which are 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s per year. In terms of rare, there's only 2 rare dates in Culiacan, the 71 and the 73. And those aren't even that rare. Then the scarce dates are 74, 78 CND, 83, 86, and 92. That's worth talking about. So one of the odd things about Culiacan is they had technical issues. You can see this is a really nice obverse, But back in the 1870s, maybe into the early 80s, they had reverses that were kind of mushy and washed out. So even though the coin was in high grade, it didn't look like it. But yet, by the time it got to the end of the series, they were producing gem quality items. And 92 was the end of the series for Culiacán. But they definitely had it right. And I have to really tell you, I talk AU, BU. Originally, I didn't care that much whether it was high grade until I got my first XF. And that kind of hooked me. Then I got my first AU, and I thought, man, why didn't I do this earlier? Because they're just so beautiful. And this one's got lots of hairlines, which made it affordable. You know, I'll never send it in for slabbing, so what does it matter? Durango is very, very fun to collect. And the reason is that you've got consistently scarce and rare coins for Durango. And in addition to that, you don't have many AUs and BUs that exist at all. So this one is a 71. It's only got a mintage of 591. And I was lucky enough to get it. It's low grade. Like I said, I don't mind a low grade. Actually, that's probably fine to very fine. Durangos are extremely difficult to find in AUBU. There's been 11 examples that have been slabbed, and 12 of the 17 dates don't have any AUs or BUs that have been slabbed for them. But Durango, as we'll get into later, is the toughest mint in the series. Okay, Guanajuato. Most people see Guanajuato and kind of just yawn. The reason is they produced coins in high quantity, relatively speaking. The lowest stated mintage was 18,000. The highest was 166. But if you're a high-grade collector, this is where you're going to find a lot of the coins that you'll be collecting, because there's been 35 AUs and BUs that have been slabbed up by the services. Despite that, you've got them all bunched up in pretty much one date. The 1870 has 13 out of those 35 AU-BU examples. And there are 11 dates out of the 21 that were produced for Guanajuato that don't have any AUs or BUs slabbed up. Hermosillo is, for the people who have a desire to collect high-grade examples, is the mint that you're going to get excited about. It only had 10 dates and assayers produced. And out of that, a stated mintage, the low stated mintage was 8,000, high was 59. There's no rare coins in the mint. There's two scarce ones, the 82 and the 95. Where we come into play is that you've got 4 out of those 9 AU-BUs that are in just 1 year, 95. And you've also got 6 out of the 10 dates assayers that don't have any slabbed up. So it's very difficult to hunt this mint in high grade. Very tough to me means very fun when you find one. Mexico City, super deceptive. On the surface, you might think big yawner, but that's actually a mint that produced a lot of rarities in the 50 centavos series. And it's also the mint with the greatest number of AUs and BUs. So it's kind of a dichotomy. The lowest stated mintage is 2,000. The highest stated mintage is 88,000, which is still low, relatively speaking, for Mexico City. So it tells me there wasn't much demand for 50 centavos in that area. There were 21 dates produced, and out of the 21 dates, you've got 11 of them that are scarce or rare. You've got 83 AUs and BUs that have been slabbed for Mexico City. And it's kind of, like I say, odd that a mint that produced so many rarities also has so many AUs and BUs. I'll tell you what, if you took out the 1886 and the 1887, then it would be in line with all the other mints, because the 1886 has 30 AUs and BUs, and the 1887 has 12. So you take out those two, and all the rest of the dates are difficult to find, and there's 6 that don't even have an AU or BU slabbed up. Potosi, as far as mintage, there is nothing that's rare out of the 23 dates and assayers that were produced. There's only 2 that are scarce to very scarce, and that's the 74 and the 78. Where the real fun comes in is in the AU and BU hunt. There's only been 13 that have been slabbed up, 13 coins that have been slabbed up for the 21 dates and assayers that have been produced. And out of that, only 8 dates have AUs or BUs at all slabbed. And there are no bumps in the road. There's no date that has proportionately more AUs and BUs than the other dates. So it means that almost any AU or BU that you find for Potosi is a gem worth buying, whether it's raw with hairlines or slabbed up AU, BU. Heck, you know, I would happily go for an XF in Potosi. They're pretty rare. Zacatecas is another odd mint. Its lowest production was 2,000. Its highest production was 254,000. And my suspicion is that a few of the other dates have even higher mintages than the 254,000, which is the highest mintage of the whole series. However, there's 58 AUs and BUs that have been slabbed up, and they're mainly in 77 and 78. But when you find them, even if it's a common date, they're pretty fun to have. They're all common. All the dates are common except the 85, which is scarce, and the 74A, the 83, and the 86, which are rare. Now we get to the fun stuff. So we're going to start dispelling or proving the urban legend. So what I did was I built a population survey of all of the denominations of all for the Republic miners. And this shows the summary page for the 50 centavos. And without showing you the summary pages for the 5s, the 10s, and the 25s, I can tell you that 50 centavos in AU or BU are, relatively speaking, the rarest of all of the decimal series. It's only 2.1%, according to my population survey. Only 2.1% of the coins that I saw were AU or BU. I recorded 1907 or 1902 in 7 years of searching. Now, what I did was I said, what we've got in the book are coins that have mintages, and we've got coins without mintages, and we've got enough numbers that I can actually analyze that and tell you what the probable total production of the series was. And I did that and came up with just a hair under 6 million coins were statistically probably produced for the series. Now, allowing for the fact that, or for the suspicion that I didn't see the highest production of the whole series in the mintage figures, I allowed an extra 500,000, and my most probable estimate is that there were 6.5 million 50 centavos produced. Now, I was having lunch with a friend of mine before I left for this, and I was summarizing this figure. And he doesn't collect 50 centavos, but we may have one more collector. This is a very powerful figure. If you show it to most collectors and you say, I've got a series of coins that 6.5 million were produced over a 25-year period of time, it's going to get people to want to collect, even if they never heard of a 50 centavo before. Now, when you consider the melts occurred starting in 1905 when they switched from the silver to the gold standard and melted 50 million pesos, sending it to England to trade for gold. And then from that point on through the Revolution, through the 20s, the 30s, anytime the Banco de Mexico got a republic coin, they melted it. So for 100 years they've been melting. And I estimate very liberally that 3% of the total exists today, which means that in my mind, no more than 195,000 50 centavos probably still exist in the world. It seems like a big number to us who, brag about, oh, I got a coin with 7 examples. But when you consider, what about the coin with the most examples, and it's still contained within this small figure. Now, to put it in perspective, that 6.5 million is less than the mintage of a lot of silver pesos and 8 reals. The 71 MOM, for example, has a mintage of higher than 6.5 million, and there's a number of other ones that have a mintage for one date higher than the whole series. So what we're talking about in this statistical study, is that the series has a lot of potential in terms of having a very constricted supply worldwide. I took availability of what I found in my survey and arranged the mints from the scarcest mint to the most common mint. Durango is the scarcest. A lot of people, when they look at the series, think Alamos is. But it's really Durango, followed by Chihuahua, Alamos, Hermosillo, Potosi. If I arranged it by prevalence of AUs and BUs by mint, it would be arranged in a different order. But for those of you who are probably considering collecting 50 centavos, you've already got that. And also, if you didn't write down what I was telling you, just do what I did. I pulled up the NGC population study and I did some analysis on it, and then added the PCGS to it. So, to me, I made a convert of collecting 50 centavos when I told my friend 6.5 million were produced, and I didn't even bother to tell him, and there's only 195,000 left in existence. And I say 195,000. You say, how can you say that? And I can say, because if there's 3%, that's how many there are. And I know from personal experience that I don't think there's one higher than that. So that's the top of what there is in existence. And most likely, it's probably somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000. surviving examples. But at this point, I can't prove it. Also, when I did my 7-year survey, in my mind, I always thought, well, 7 years, it's not perfect. Probably I'm going to go under the assumption that everything in my census can be multiplied by 100 in terms of surviving examples. That's one of the reasons I like that 195,000, because it happens to be 100 times more than the number that I saw in my 7-year population survey. So to recap, what are the facts we've got so far? Fact, 47% of the dates have mintages. You know what? For any of you who have a marketing mentality, like I do, mintage figures are a great selling tool. And I'm not talking selling coins, I'm talking about introducing other people to 50 centavos. It's far easier to get people to want to collect 50 centavos than 4 reals. The reason is not one 4 real has a mintage figure, so you have to take it on faith from the seller or from the person who's trying to entice you to collecting them that they're rare. But there's no proof. With 47% of the dates having mintage figures, there's proof that somebody can look at in a book to tell them, yes, relative to my concept of scarcity, these are scarce. The stated mintages are very low, from a low of 591 to a high of 254,000. Now, I'm 100% convinced that there were lower productions than 591. Probably for the 83 GOB or the 78 and 79 Durangos, I'm sure those had lower production. And I'm also pretty convinced that there were a few that had mintages as high as 400,000. But you take all that and you divide it by the number of coins, the number of dates produced, and the approximate rule of thumb you can go on is for 50 centavos, the average production would have been 30,000 coins, and survival rates were low. Very few 50 centavos have been slabbed. NGC is 327, PCGS is 93. Those of you who have played the game know that that probably includes resubmissions also. And I don't know what that means. Oh, okay, slabbed, and this is AU and BU. Some of those coins have been slabbed in fine. And just as an offhanded remark, why would somebody slab a coin in fine? But you've got about 320, or no, about 120 that aren't AU, BU, and still are in the population survey. Now, I couldn't find it in PCGS, the ones that were details, but in NGC, there's 52 AU and MS details coins in addition to what they've got there. So there are more than just the original figures. Now, from my census, I come to the conclusion that 2.1% of those that I encountered in that 7-year period of time were AU or MS. Most high-grade coins have hairlines. Anybody who looks at my collection, you'd see that right away. And the average grade encountered across everything, let me bring you back a few in case you didn't catch it. Right here shows the total by grade. So the average is slightly higher than fine in terms of everything that exists. So it's and you know, that stands to reason because the last 50 centavo that was produced was 1895. They didn't start to go out of circulation until 1905 when they came in with the lower fineness. And so then they circulated for 30 or 40 years 10 years after the last one was produced. So it's a series that's heavily worn on average. Whoops, let's catch up. Now, in total, I have to say, even though the 50 centavos are the toughest series in the decimal, in terms of high grade and in terms of even availability, if you compare the totals I've got in my survey between the 50 centavos and the 4 reals. 4 reals have a few more dams than the 50 centavos, but you can see the total I came up with in 7 years is 1,400. So I would have to say 50 centavos are hard, but they're not the hardest of all the series. The 4 reals by date and assayer are probably about 30% more difficult to find than the 50 centavos. But among the decimal series, the 50 centavos are the toughest. Now we get into, so the summary of the urban legend about low grade aren't worthy of collecting. My summary is, no, you're wrong. If you're only going to collect the AUs and BUs, you'll be doing it for your whole life and never really have a very good collection. There's enough rarities and scarcities among the low grades to keep you interested in the series. Now, what about contemporary counterfeits? I should have passed this out beforehand. I'll start it at this side because these guys have largely seen it. This is my book of, it's my contemporary counterfeit study book. I put the 50 centavos at the beginning and show all of the contemporary counterfeits I had in my collection and how they'd be identified. So just take a look at it and pass it along. It has 1 reals, half reals, I think, and others in the back. You're welcome to take a look at it. But here is a 71 MOC. In the book, as far as I know, everybody who owns one knows it's a contemporary counterfeit because it doesn't have the look of a regular. Yet, I happily collect it just because it's fun. It's fun to have. It's, if you want an MOC, the only way you're going to get it is buying a contemporary counterfeit, and they don't cost a lot of money. But because nobody's trying to fool you and saying this is a real one, they're just selling you a 71 MOC, which everyone knows is fake. It makes it fun to own. It makes it fun to collect. Now, the 82 and the 81 and 82 CNG, they both look about like that. You can tell by looking at the eagle that it's not right. They're both in the book, and actually, they are both very scarce to rare. And I gladly collect them just because, you know, it's really a hard contemporary counterfeit to get. Fun to own. So just because you got a contemporary counterfeit doesn't mean it's junk. You can have a lot of fun with it. So long as you're not deceiving people when you're buying or selling them. So my conclusion on contemporary counterfeits, and I studied a lot of this when I did that weight study that I talked about earlier of 950 coins. What I did was weighed everything up and then looked at all the data for coins of the same grade and the weights. And if you've got a contemporary counterfeit, and you graph this stuff, it sticks out like a sore thumb. The weight almost always gives it away. The 82 and 81 CNG, they're high weight. They got more silver in them than the average coin, so they stick out in a weight study. And the other ones in the book are all low weight. Anytime you get a 50 centavo and you weigh it up on a scale like this, one that goes to 1/100th of a gram. And it's sitting in the low 12s, low 12 grams, or even in the 11s. You know without even looking at it. You could be a blind man collecting these, and you'd know that's a contemporary counterfeit. It's not even a modern counterfeit. So most of them, as you can see in the book of contemporary counterfeits, have been identified long ago. No silver on them. They've been disfigured in some way. Cast examples. I just found a cast example when someone was offering it to me about 6 months ago. And I said to him, "What's the weight on that coin?" Because I thought I could see air bubbles. And then he came back and it's 11 something. And I said, "Okay, that's a fake. Go check it out yourself. Look at the sides of the coin to see if you can see air bubbles on the reeds. If you can, that's a contemporary counterfeit." So some of them still exist. They might masquerade as genuine 50 centavos, but they're very easy to locate if you spend the time doing it. And some of the contemporary counterfeits, as I showed you earlier, are actually heavily sought after. So now we get to what generally makes collectors get serious, especially those who are collecting high-grade coins and high-dollar coins. What is the problem of that you might face with contemporary or modern counterfeits? So I did the 950 coin weight study. My initial belief for doing this speech was that I thought I saw higher incidence of sales or offerings on eBay than what I thought should exist for the series. And I thought I was seeing VF coins in greater proportion than what they should have been. So I figured, okay, I've got enough coins, I'm going to weigh everything and determine, is there monkey business actually going on? And when you look at the weight, a weight study, and I think the next page has an example. Whoops, where is it? One of these pages. Shoot, I lost it. No, I'll tell you what. Well, I had a sheet with an actual page from the weight study. Got lost somewhere in the shuffle. But when you look at the weights, you actually come to the belief that doing a contemporary or a modern counterfeit is a tough job to fool somebody. And the reason is, if you're doing one in BU, that's probably the only way you're going to fool somebody, is if you've got a BU modern counterfeit that the die has been made from a BU coin. Because then you know what your weight target is that you have to hit. You know what the purity is that you have to hit. You know what the weight target is you have to hit when preparing your planchet. And all you got to do then is make sure your die is good. But then you've got the marketing problem, which is a huge detractor to modern counterfeiters, and that's that you couldn't sell enough of them, except maybe those few dates I was talking about that had over-prevalence of high-grade examples. You couldn't sell enough of them to make it profitable. And it's for that one reason that it's very unlikely you're going to see now or in the future that there's a problem with modern counterfeiting. My belief that they were counterfeiting lower grade coins was dispelled also in that 950 coin weight study, because the problem they have is twofold. If you're going to take a VF coin and produce a die from it, then what you have to do is adjust the weight of the coin off of what the books state it should be to allow for weight, or for wear. And then you also have to make the coin look worn. You can't produce a nice BU planchet and strike a VF coin with it. Also, all your VFs are going to pretty much look the same. So you've got a multi-factor combination that really discourages the production of 50 centavos in China. Also, the fact that today's collectors are so biased in favor of owning AU and BU coins that if they were to be counterfeiting VFs or XFs, they wouldn't make enough money selling them to pay off their time, to make it worth their time. So in general, the conclusion to the question of is there a problem with contemporary or modern counterfeits, the answer that I came out of my weight study is no. I don't see that there's a problem. I may have identified one or two coins in there that were high grade that had an unusual weight, but in general, it seems like out of the 3 urban legends that I was originally given, 2 of them are true. That there's no problem with contemporary counterfeits, there's no problem with modern counterfeits, and the only one I was able to disprove to my belief is that the lower grade 50 centavos are very collectible, and they're a lot of fun. I'd like to entertain questions if you've got any. Yes?
Can you talk about the 1888 case?
The reason I left that out is because I've never owned one and I've never examined one. So I really can't talk about them. And the only first-hand experience I have with the 88s is that there's one that Scott brought to my attention that's been on eBay for a while. It's a fake 88 that's labeled as a fake. The books say they're all fake. I don't believe they are. At the Len Novotny sale back in March of 2011, there was a number of them that were sold, and they brought about $5,000 to $8,000 each. But they're very rare, so rare that I didn't get a chance to actually do any work on them, and I didn't want to include them in my speech because of that. But if someone were to offer me one at a reasonable price, I might take the bait. Any other questions? Yes?
So during your 7-year study, did you notice any price trends? Are there other people getting into collecting them like you are?
No, to be truthful with you, 50 centavos are a unpopular series. And I attribute that to psychology. People are generally the kind of person who likes collecting big coins, in which case they'll be collecting pesos and cabalitos and 8 reals. Or they like collecting small coins. They'll collect 5 centavos or quarter reals. The 50 centavos are kind of left in psychology no man's land. They aren't sexy at the current time. The fact that there's so many high-grade examples that have hairlines tells me in the past they probably were a lot more heavily collected than they are at the current time. But the price trend, if there is one, is very gradual increase, and a lot of that's just because of the increase in silver. Yes?
We talk about the prevalence of hairlines and any of the other issues versus the other denominations and the
Yeah.
series. Is it comparable in the 50s?
Well, XFs are heavily hairlined. VFs, Mexicans liked cleaning their coins, and a lot of the lower grade ones have been cleaned and over time toned over. But if you look closely enough, I'm sure almost all of them have been cleaned.
But what about versus the 20s, 10s, and 5s?
They're heavily,
It's the same.
yeah. I mean, they just liked shiny coins. The only ones, the reason that it's not as prevalent for the 5s, 10s, and 25s is because I think some of those came up in hordes. and then they don't get shined. But if they were previously in collections, for those dates that I told you about where there's 1, 2, 3, 4 high-grade examples that have been slabbed, those dates, you probably won't get that many pristine examples because those came over the decades from collections. But for those like the 88 MO 5 centavo, there's a lot of them in BU, and they're all pretty good because I think they all came out of a hoard. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you think that there's more problem-free AUB coins that aren't slabbed than there are in the slab census?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that, but regardless, I still think, being a statistical person, that there's still only about 2% of the population that would qualify as AUBU. But I'm certain there's a lot of AUBU coins that are in safe deposit boxes that haven't been submitted and might never be submitted. There's a lot of collectors who don't until, like if you're a collector and you enjoy collecting and you say, well, you know, if I enjoy it, I'm going to do it to the day I die, and I don't need to sell my collection unless I run into problems, there's no incentive to ever get your stuff slabbed. So, and there's a lot of people like that. They figure my kids can sell it if they don't want it. But in the meantime, why slab it? Because if I slab it, I'm going to be tempted to sell it. And, you know, I don't want to sell it. It's part of my collection. I don't want to sell my kids either. So I think there's a lot of them that are in higher grade, but it still would be, if you think about the total population, I don't think that for 50 centavos it's more than 2% of the population. So the numbers may go up, but the number of examples probably won't ever exceed that. Yes?
Were you aware that back when Richard Long was doing his monthly newsletters, he did a pop study about 1980, 89, 90 on these 50 centavos?
Well, you know, Richard Long in one of his auctions offered a lot of 150 centavos. I got the whole lot for $9 a coin. So I'm sure all those were included in his population study. But I don't think I've got a copy of that. If you can ever get a copy of it, you got my card. Email.
I'll see what I can.
Email me
I'll have
that.
it somewhere.
But I'd be surprised if he
I
came
don't
up
think it was
with
as big as yours, but
different.
it did go through all the issues and did something
Yeah.
very similar to what you're talking about.
But it's a tough series. I'm not sure too many of you all are going to collect it, but if you do collect it, come to me and compare notes. It's real fun talking about them. Any other questions? Yes?
So with your population study, are you working with Krauss and some of the other publications to get the published vintages
No.
tested at all?
No. Well, the mintages, I can't adjust them. I don't have figures. And I doubt they'd be interested in taking my study and saying this is scarce, this is rare. I know if I was a publisher, I wouldn't. I always make jokes with folks, because at the club, I say, you know, you can't look at the book and know what the price is. Because in order to sell a book, a coin book, you don't have to have accurate prices. You just have to have a price for every date and grade. Because the people who are buying it don't know what the price is, so it's not like they're going to not buy your book because the prices are way out of date. So for Mexican coin section, the prices are way out of date, and they're off, but for to the advantage of most collectors now is eBay. And the NGC has a search for coin prices. So you can go out on eBay and look at what coins have sold for in the last 60 days. I think that's as far back as they go, isn't it? But you can find out what coins they're selling for. That's the real market. If Krause wanted to ever find out what coins are really worth, they could do it. They wouldn't have to ask me because there's enough data available on sales. Because a lot of coins, a lot higher proportion of coins are selling over the internet now than ever were in the past. And all that data is recordable. I'm glad I did my population survey because that way all the coins that came on the market that I looked at, I graded personally. So they're all consistently graded. They weren't graded by 100 different sellers. So I'm pretty sure when I show that summary of examples by grade that that's pretty accurate for that 7-year period of time. But in time, those price guides are going to become closer to the mark just because of the availability of sales data on the internet. If you have a clever IT person who knows how to scan for that and load up a database.
It seems like that would be the best way to get more collectors involved, is to have the accurate information for the availability of certain years.
Might scare them off. Because this way, they look at the book and they think, oh, I can get that coin for $10, so they start hunting it. And then they find out, well, I can't, but since I'm now in the hunt, I'll pay the 15 or 20. Right. So, you know, it's all a psychology thing. I don't, and I'll tell you what, I worked with Whitman Publishing 5 years ago. They were wanting to do like number 3 in Bailey series. So I did pricing for about 5 or 6 denominations in the Republic Minors. And I came to the conclusion that if everything were known and there weren't any unlisted dates or unlisted varieties, it would kill the fun. One of the things that really makes Mexican coin collecting fun is the sense of discovery. And if the book tells you everything that you ever need to know, to me it made me think, well, maybe I ought to throttle back here on the amount of information I'm putting in this price guide, because it would destroy all the fun. So I didn't put in all of those obscure varieties. And if something was unlisted and I knew it existed, well, you guys may throw apples at me, but I left it out. Just because I figured everybody likes finding an unlisted date. And it makes them really, you know, put a smile on their face. They brag to their friends. And if everything was known, who knows what it would do to Mexican collecting. But that never got published anyway. It's unfortunate. But, you know, Krause gets better every year. Anyway, thank you all for your time, and join the hunt.